revealed the secrets of the disappearance of ancient civilizations. Studying ancient records, historians and archaeologists find historical facts that reveal the secret of the existence of ancient civilizations on Earth. Huge temples lost in the jungle, or giant caves full of treasures, all this indicates a highly developed culture that has disappeared over the centuries for reasons we do not understand. Why did people leave these thriving cities, agricultural centers and trade routes? Often the answer is unknown. Here are 8 great civilizations whose disappearance remains a mystery. Maya. A classic example of a civilization, most of the heritage of which is irretrievably lost. The palaces and entire cities of the once powerful people who inhabited the Yucatan Peninsula, the territory of modern Mexico, Belize and Guatemala, are now almost destroyed or swallowed up by the jungle. The heyday of the Maya civilization occurred in the first millennium of our era. They created a complex calendar, invented writing and mathematical formulas, developed engineering structures that allowed the construction of huge pyramids and multi-stage irrigation systems for agricultural land. The gradual extinction of civilization began around 900, long before Christopher Columbus's visit to America. Historians still do not know exactly what caused the loss of the former power and the death of the Maya, but according to some versions, wars of destruction and climate deterioration were to blame for everything, as a result of which famine began and the Maya were forced to leave their cities. Indian civilization. One of the greatest civilizations of antiquity is also called Harappan. The city of Harappa was one of its centers. The number of inhabitants of the Indus River Valley during the heyday of civilization reached 5 million people, about 10% of the total population of the globe at that time. The Harappans could boast of advanced metallurgy, monumental architecture, sculpture, painting and unique writing, which, however, has not yet been deciphered. The Indian people actively traded with Mesopotamia, Sumer, Arabia and the states of Central Asia. The high level of culture and industry did not save the Harappan civilization from destruction. About 5,000 years ago, most of the population of the valley moved to the southeast, leaving behind huge cities with wide avenues, multi-story buildings and a water supply system. The most likely reason for the departure of Harappans from their native places is considered to be the deterioration of natural conditions. For several centuries, the settlers lost almost all the possessions of their ancestors, and the last carriers of the Harappan culture were destroyed by the Aryan invasion. Easter Island. The settlement of the island began, according to some sources, around 300 AD. The first inhabitants arrived from eastern Polynesia on huge boats that allowed them to travel long distances. Before the arrival of Europeans on Rapa Nui, the local name of the island, 2 tribes lived here, the long-eared, who created the famous Moai statues, and the short-eared, who were actually in the position of slaves. In the 16th century, the short-eared revolted, as a result of which almost all representatives of the ruling people were destroyed, their culture and writing quickly declined. Now almost nothing is known about the civilization of the ancient Rapa Nui people. According to scientists, its heyday was very short-lived and ended with deforestation around 1200, after which the island's population declined. Most moved to other islands, and the rest were finished off by short-eared. Jaldak. One of the oldest cities in the world, its history began more than 5,000 years ago. The city was part of a fairly advanced Neolithic civilization that existed on the territory of modern Turkey. Jaldak stands out from most other settlements of that period with its unique architecture. There were no streets in the modern sense of the word in the city, houses were built next to each other and had access through the roof. The inhabitants were engaged in agriculture and animal husbandry, grew wheat and legumes, collected nuts and fruits. They made most of the tools from obsidian and supplied them to other settlements. Jaldak was a real metropolis for its time. Its population numbered about 10,000 people, and archaeological finds indicate a complex socio-political structure of the city and a developed culture. It is unknown what prompted the residents to leave the city with more than 2,000 years of history. Cahokia. Located in the U.S. state of Illinois, the Cahokia Mounds are all that remains of the Indian civilization that existed here long before the arrival of Europeans. Cahokia has long been the largest city in North America, its area was more than 15 km2, and the population reached 40,000 people. The 109 mounds that have survived to this day are part of a ceremonial complex where various religious celebrations were held. In the center of the complex is the famous four-level monk's mound, the dimensions of which are truly grandiose. 28 meters in height and 290 in length. Some archaeological finds indicate that the Indians from the banks of the Mississippi were excellent artists, sculptors and architects. They created ornaments made of copper and shells, decorated the walls of temples with elaborate ornaments and images of gods, and even developed a sophisticated irrigation system for fields that used the waters of the Mississippi and Illinois rivers. Around 1200, residents began to leave the city. According to some scientists, because of the terrible sanitary situation, which caused numerous epidemics and famine. Jebecli Tepe. The temple complex of Jebecli Tepe was built, presumably, about 10,000 years BC. This is one of the most mysterious structures of ancient Russia, almost nothing is known about it. Pot-bellied hill, this is how the name of the archaeological monument is translated, is located in the southeast of modern Turkey. No traces of a settlement have been found around the hill, so historians believe that it served as the main religious building for local nomadic tribes. Most likely, several ministers of worship constantly lived in the temple, and nomads came here to conduct rituals. The temple is built in the form of concentric circles, the surface of its columns is decorated with bas-reliefs depicting animals and people. Currently, only about 5% of the territory of the complex has been explored, so archaeologists have yet to answer many questions, the main one of which is what kind of people created it and to whom they prayed in this temple. Firuzka. The magnificent Jam Minaret is the only surviving building of the city of Firuzka, Turquoise Mountain, the capital of the Ghurid Empire, which included the territories of modern Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran. The minaret was built at the end of the 12th century in honor of the victory of Sultan Ghiyas ad-Din over the Ghaznavids and was one of the main religious buildings in the city, but several decades later the army of Genghis Khan wiped Firuzka from the face of the earth and the minaret was forgotten for a long time. Unfortunately, due to the inaccessibility of the monument and the unstable situation in Afghanistan, archaeologists still cannot begin full-fledged excavations in this area. Recently, experts have sounded the alarm, floods and earthquakes can destroy the minaret, so a system of measures is being urgently developed to strengthen and restore it because it is a unique example of medieval Ghurid culture. Angkor. One of the most famous sites of Cambodia, but not everyone knows that the temple complex was once part of the huge city of Angkor, the capital of the Khmer Empire. Angkor flourished between 1000 and 1200 AD, and its population, according to some estimates, reached 1 million people, probably at one time it was the largest city in the world. There are different versions as to why the city fell into disrepair, from war to natural disaster. Most of the ruins, which are remarkable examples of Hindu architecture, are overgrown with jungle, which makes it difficult to explore them.